Hey folks, Mark Yerkes here, coming to you from the beautiful city of Split, Croatia. I'm here to explore some of the obscure Christian history of this great city. So join me. Split, Croatia is a favorite tourist stop in Europe. Not only is it beautiful, but there is much to do and a huge amount of history to be seen and enjoyed. In 1979, the Old Town area of Diocletian's Palace became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We will take an in-depth walk through the Old Town later, but first we must lay the historical foundation and visit some Roman ruins that are just 6 kilometers away. Diocletian was actually a successful emperor of the Roman Empire in many respects. His armies defeated political rivals and enemy nations. He reorganized the ruling hierarchy into a tetrarchy, where the responsibilities of the empire were divided into East and West, with 2 emperors, himself being the chief, and 2 Caesars, who were ready to succeed an emperor who died or abdicated. He reorganized the provinces, separated the military officials from the administrators, and changed the tax structures to increase revenue. But perhaps his greatest achievement in a world where Roman rulers were frequently assassinated was surviving long enough to retire. All of his efforts led to stabilization in the empire, at least for a while. But one thing stood in the way of complete stability: Diocletian himself. He believed that Christians offended the Pax Deorum, or peace of the gods. He wanted the empire to return to the worship of the classic deities, but in addition, there existed the imperial cult, the deification of the emperor, which had existed since Augustus ruled, some 300 years earlier. Jews and Christians had refused to worship any emperor as a god. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD, and the Jews were scattered. Yet, in spite of the persecutions enforced upon them, Christians increased in number. This now became a real threat to Diocletian's control and to his ego, for he may have truly believed in his own divine nature and demanded worship.
Omnipotent. Yes. Omnipotent power, hail. Seneca, don't you think omnipotent is better?
Far better, divinity.
There's no conviction in your voice. You disturb me.
Whatever good works he may have accomplished as emperor, they are overshadowed by his attempt to eradicate Christianity. In 303 AD, he ordered that all churches and Christian texts be destroyed. He began by persecuting the Christian leaders, and in 305, he ordered all Christians to be killed. But in that same year, he fell ill, likely a judgment from the true God of heaven, whom he had mocked. Because of his poor health, Diocletian chose to abdicate and retire to his new palace. He tended to gardening while outside the walls, the tetrarchy he created fell apart. Constantine defeated Maxentius at the Battle of Milvian Bridge in October of 312, and then he legalized Christianity. In despair, Diocletian is believed to have committed suicide in order to avoid arrest and humiliation. Truly, the scriptures he tried to destroy were proven correct. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Salona was the capital of the province of Dalmatia, and it had a population exceeding 60,000. By today's standards, that would be a small city, but in ancient times, in this region of the world, it was significant. Across the sea from Italy, Salona owed its success to this proximity, and to its location beside a river which emptied into a protected bay of the Adriatic, a city of idolatry under the heavy influence of Rome. As such, the public buildings reflected the taste of Rome: an oratory, public baths, the forum, pagan temples, an amphitheater for gladiator games, public places for both the living and the dead.
And now I bring you to the ancient city of Salona. This is actually where Diocletian was born and raised. It was a prominent Roman city. However, after Diocletian was gone, this place became a center of Christianity. What you see behind me over my left shoulder is the remains of the basilica, which was built here in the 4th and 5th centuries AD.
The Basilica Monastirine was built on the site of a pagan necropolis that had existed here for hundreds of years. But after Christianity was legalized, this became the cemetery for Christians. The martyred Bishop Domnius was buried here, and the faithful wanted to be buried nearby. As you explore the site, you cannot help but notice that most of the sarcophagi are broken open. In the 7th century, barbarian Slavs attacked Salona, bringing about its destruction and abandonment. They then desecrated the cemetery in search of jewelry and other possible treasures.
During the persecutions of Diocletian, Christians had to gather in secret. They did so in an area just opposite the thermal baths. That is the area you see below me now.
It seems that some chose to hide themselves in the open. Near the thermae, or hot baths, was a public oratory, where people could openly discuss what was on their minds: business, philosophy, anything legal. Christians could thus gather in small groups of known believers and quietly discuss their faith, so as not to be overheard. There is a saying that if you want to hide a book, put it in a large library. That idea seems to have worked for the early Salona church. The second basilica was built in the location of the oratory to remember these brave believers.
Today, it is still visited by tourists and viewed as a place of historic significance, a birthplace for the church in Salona.
Join me in the next episode concerning the obscure Christian history of split Croatia, as we explore Diocletian's palace, the way it was intended, and what it has become.